Hello, this is David Taylor Klaus, and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode 32. Take a quick moment, if you will, and click share just below. Invite your friends, your community to join the conversation. Would love to have more voices, more folks playing along. This is, again, episode number 32 in a year-long series of weekly broadcasts designed to give folks with a growth mindset or those who want to create one the opportunity to play with new ideas and new concepts and try on new mindsets. So today, let's play with this idea. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to accept what is. I love Kierkegaard's nickname, the Danish Socrates. So I like that idea a lot, the playground of looking at that dance between what is true and what isn't, and the two different ways that we mess with that. These are really, I look at this as when you're believing what isn't true, that's living in fantasy. When you're refusing to believe or to accept what is true, that's denial. And I think that's the playground we really dance in. Look, I know I do. I really have lots of experience letting those two ways of fooling myself into my world. When my saboteurs mess with me, it's usually telling me things that aren't true. You're not capable. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough, right? You've got nothing to say. Why should anybody listen to you? I've talked about this. That saboteur land is always telling you things that aren't true, lying, and accepting those is living in fantasy world. And then refusing to accept what is true, whether it's the positive or the negative, the I am capable, I am smart enough, this is the work I'm meant to be doing. That's denial. And I think that that's a really destructive dance, is being in either of those spaces, right? So starting off, what's coming up for you with this? How do you respond to Kierkegaard's thoughts here? Two ways to be fooled. How do they show up for you? Right? You know, we choose what we want to see in the face of overwhelming evidence. I mean, look at from the sublime to the ridiculous. Flat earthers in the face of incredible body of science, thousands of years of science, there's still a fragment of our world that believes that the earth is flat, and not getting into a scientific discussion. Despite overwhelming evidence, they are holding fast to the idea that something that is impossible, believing it's true. Now, on the flip side, not to defend them, just to play out the idea, back to the conversation we had about Roger Bannister and breaking the 4-minute mile in 1957. Up until that point, oh my, we believed that it was impossible for a human body to withstand the force necessary to break the 4-minute mile, to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. And science began to back that up. Scientists believed the lie so much. They believed what wasn't true. It skewed their scientific evidence. So much so that when Roger Bannister, after running a sub 4-minute mile, looked up at the clock and thought that he was dead. He must have been, right? And again, as the story goes, by the end of the next year, over 50 people had broken the 4-minute barrier. They were being fooled by believing something that wasn't true. Whereas, so it really goes both ways, right? But then there's the other piece, refusing to accept what is true. Refusing to accept what is true. My wrestle with that is accepting anything that holds me back. telling myself that I can't, telling myself that I shouldn't. And I think that the challenge is the opportunity. And I think what we're called to do is to question what we believe, to question what we know, to question what we hear and what we feel and what we see, and question everything and question it until we do enough digging, enough self-exploration, until we reach source, until we reach the truth, until we unearth what is true. And then with eyes wide open, we accept what's true and we reject that which is not. Without questioning, without digging, without that reflective intelligence, without being willing to look deep and ask the questions about what are we feeling? What do we feel about what we're feeling? What do we think about what we're thinking? Playing in that meta space without digging that deep. It's easy to find ourselves accepting fantasy as true and choosing denial over truth. It seems so simple when it's really easy to rattle on about this. And yet, what are the things you find yourself believing that aren't true? No, better yet, where are you questioning your beliefs? Right? Where are you taking the time to question what you've been told, what you've been taught? We have a gender pay gap in this country that's deplorable, with women earning anywhere from 75 to 78 cents on the dollar compared to men for exactly the same work. And that comes from a cultural belief system that's holding things as true that aren't. And yet, even at a cultural level, we hold that rather than holding as true. We're refusing to accept that men and women are equal and should be paid the same amount for the same work. So how do we dispel the cultural myth? How do we break, not just at a personal level, how do we reach to a cultural level and break these patterns of denial, these patterns of fantasy? What is it that you're doing in the world to challenge your own beliefs? And what are you doing in the world to challenge society's beliefs or community's belief or a family's belief systems? Right? Letting people go off on their own, believing things that aren't true or refusing to accept that things are true. It's hard enough to help ourselves address that. It's really hard to watch those around us allow themselves to be fooled. So how do you impact your world? How do you shift and question your own beliefs? And how do you help others around you shift and question their beliefs? It's an interesting playground. Kierkegaard invites us by calling this out, invites us to look at where we're fooling ourselves. We've got the Who song playing in the back of my head, the line, "Won't get fooled again." And where are you allowing yourself to believe what isn't true? Better yet, where are you taking the time? How are you structuring time to think about, to question what you believe, to question what you know, to question what you hear, to question what you see and what you feel? How are you testing your beliefs? So yeah, this is, so what bubbled up immediately was, what an opportunity for coaching. Yes, obviously. And what an opportunity for having conversations with people around you. So I'm a verbal processor, as you might have surmised by now. I think out loud a lot. And what an opportunity to have conversations with friends and colleagues and the people around you to talk about these things. What a beautiful way to connect with another human. But more importantly, what a beautiful way to connect with what is true and what isn't true. Do you have these conversations with people around you? Do you have these conversations with people in your world? Do you have these conversations with yourself? I think that's the piece. What I love about coaching is the space around of coaching is a way and a place and a space and a time and an energy to have conversations that most people don't have in their world. The cool thing about becoming a coach, it was a space where I got a chance to have conversations that I didn't have in my world normally. So we're not pitching you to get a coach as much as I'm encouraging you to ask the questions and have conversations and build connection with the people in your world. Wow, what could be different? What would be different? Morning, John. Nice to see you. So, and John, that's a great conversation for you, John Waddy. The chance you are creating a business right now where you're having conversations with entrepreneurs that they're not having anywhere else, right? Like the work that I do, entrepreneurs are so often so heads down. They're not asking questions. They're not questioning what they believe and what they feel and what they know. Not they, we. I'm an entrepreneur, right? And I spent a great deal of time in my earlier businesses so immersed in the doing, in working in the business. I wasn't doing a lot of work on the business, and I wasn't doing a lot of work on myself. I wasn't thinking about what I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about my choices. I wasn't digging and questioning. I was doing. Yeah, it gave me a lot of opportunity to reinvent along the way. Each time there was an inflection point. And John, what I love about your work and what I love about the work that we're doing in each in our own way is inviting people to have those conversations. You know, the sooner the better. You know, the joke is like voting in Chicago in the 60s, early and often. Having those conversations early in your work, in your career, in your path, and often. You know, again, it's questioning what you believe, questioning what you know, questioning what you hear and what you feel, and questioning what you see. Questioning everything until you can dig to the core and unearth what's true. Test it. Test your beliefs and your assumptions. Test everything. We grow, and we grow by learning. And this is an opportunity to learn. So for your playground this week, right? What will you change? What will you do differently? What will you question? What will you unearth? So, invitation for you this week is, like every week, what mindset will you choose? Look forward to seeing you next week.